Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Trish Ahjel Roberts wants you to be happy. Today she'll tell us how. Trish, thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Now, Trish, you're the happiness expert. So let me ask you first, what do you mean by the term? We always hear self-actualization when we talk about happiness. What does that mean?
Right. So self-actualization is really reaching your highest level of joy and fulfillment in your life, really living up to your potential.
And what do you mean, though, is the foundation? Like, what do we have to do to achieve that in the most simplest terms, if we want to know more about ourselves and get that foundation?
Yeah. So in my book, 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness, I structured it so that you kind of get the foundation first, and then it goes on to like deeper levels. But the basics are really being mentally well, so healing from any kind of trauma or dysfunction in your past, having some sort of spiritual life, at least a recognition of a spiritual self, having community and connection, and having some level of peacefulness, so not being wrapped up in anger. And I would say the last piece of that is really a sense of authenticity. So feeling okay being your true self. So that's kind of the foundation.
Now, Tricia, I noticed that healing is the first step for happiness. Can you give us a few tips about that? Because I think we all keep a lot in ourselves, and probably if we had that X-ray vision, we could see somebody having a part of them that's just I'm hateful about this or that, whether it's a world condition, a relative, a boss we didn't like, or whatever.
Yeah. So and especially now, we're all dealing with the pandemic. I think the first thing is really prioritizing yourself. Many of us, I think particularly women, a lot of times we're prioritizing our families and our partners. So really making sure you set aside time for yourself and that you have boundaries so that you're doing the things that are important to you. Setting aside time for self-care is important, whether it's having some stillness. I know if you have a lot of kids, it might mean hiding in the bathroom for a little while to get some peace. But those are some of the important tips for healing. And I'll give you one more, actually, because I know with the pandemic, a lot of us have kind of had a little bit of backsliding to old habits. So it's important to be patient with yourself and to forgive yourself, because this is really unprecedented times that we're dealing with right now.
Now, our show is The Secrets of Success, but the most successful people will tell us when we say what comes first, happiness or success. And most of us think, gee, if I'm successful, I'll be happy. I'll be making money. I'll live in the mansion. I'll have the boat, whatever that brings to our mind. And yet they'll tell us it's the other way around. We have to be happy first. So you're the first person we have to talk to, really, and follow your rules, because if we're not happy with ourselves, we're not going to be successful. We're just going to be a miserable old curmudgeon making problems for the world.
And I'll tell you a funny thing, because I worked as a financial advisor for many years and met a lot of people who had a lot of money and a lot of possessions and were still surprisingly insecure or unhappy. So, yeah, it's absolutely true.
And I'll match that with the famous coach I once talked to playing golf. He had 3 sons. 2 of them were making, at that time, this is years ago, over $700,000 a year on Wall Street. The other one was a fireman. The 2 making $700,000 a year. And he told me this, were miserable. The fireman went to work happy every day, truly enjoyed his job, was a service to society, loved the camaraderie he had. So, I mean, what more example? Here we are, the image, Wall Street. This is where I want to work. Everybody going to the Ivy League wants to be on Wall Street and work there. And when they got there, they found that they really weren't happy.
And you make a good point. You make a good point, too, that working in service to others has the capacity to make you much happier. Sometimes, like what you're talking about with Wall Street, they may not know what the end result is. Like, what are you really creating or providing as a service? So, yeah, you got all the right ideas there.
And I think that's one of God's tricks on us, that he puts the money on one side and the service on the other. And little do we realize we go in one direction and he knows the smart ones are going in the other direction. When you deal with people, is there one big rule you have for happiness or that you sought out with when you're talking to them?
The biggest rule that I found that comes up a lot, and I will probably be writing a book on that for the new year, is releasing anger. People, I know I've definitely thought that anger was something necessary and normal in my life, but you actually do not have to be angry. So I teach people how to release that anger. I have a process that I call tame and reframe. It's like 4 quick steps. But the first one is to acknowledge your anger. The second is to, take some breaths and allow oxygen to reach the brain, and give you a little bit of a moment to make a better choice. And the third step is really igniting your empathy. So whoever or whatever it is that's made you upset, if you can kind of turn it around to ignite your empathy and understand their situation. And then finally, the last step is constructive action. So taking that feeling of anger and turning it into a positive action. Oh my gosh, that's the biggest step to really increase the happiness in your life, because you can't be happy and angry at the same time.
That makes a lot of sense. Now I'm going to ask you to take us behind your curtain a little bit and tell us, when you're dealing with people like Dr. Phil would be, to use someone we know from TV, what is the biggest reason for anger that you see? Is it, I hate my ex-husband, my ex-wife? Is it a parent? Is it a boss? Or is it something maybe we wouldn't even guess and people are angry at?
So anger typically happens anytime things don't happen the way we think they should happen. So that's the biggest point. The other piece is our ego. When you say, somebody said something to you and you think, well, how dare they say this to me? Like you're better than them, when you're not. We're all the same. But those are really the 2 biggest components. We think that when we drive, there should be no traffic, right? Like we control the universe.
I always believe that. Don't you believe that? That all those other people should get out of the way. I'm in a hurry.
Everything we do should go the way that we want it to go. And life just doesn't work that way. So once you realize that that's not how this thing works, and you learn to channel that feeling of anger into something constructive, it has a huge capacity to increase the joy in your life. It's really, really amazing.
Trish, what is the biggest myth about anger that people think about it that they're just incorrect?
Well, you touched on it before. The biggest myth is people think when they get the thing that they want, they're going to be happy. So it could be when I find the perfect spouse, or when I get the bigger house, or when I get the job promotion, or when the kids finally go off to college. Whatever it is, we think, okay, yeah, when that happens, that's when I'm going to be happy. But it doesn't actually work that way. So you have to learn how to be happy now, in the moment, with whatever's going on around you.
You bring back a lot of past history in my life, because I remember growing up and talking, with my childhood chums. And our first stage was, I can't wait till I graduate college. Little did we know those were probably the happiest days of our life, etc. Then It was, I want to take care of my military obligation. Once that's out of the way, I can start my career. Then, of course, you had to have your master's. So once I get this master's, because now I'm going to school and working, and then I can get a better job. And the best years of our life, we were looking past what we should have been enjoying every day. Everybody wanted to be 19, 22, 24 like us and have what we had, a good education and moving ahead. And little did we know we had the winning ticket. And we were just looking for, let's get over that. And of course, as soon as we got the master's, there was something else, whether it was a promotion, someone ahead of us, or another degree or a certificate, whatever the case might be.
And if you're not paying attention, your whole life could pass you by, right?
Oh, exactly. And
you'll be playing that game your whole life. So
instead of enjoying those moments, and we don't know how long we all have. Of course, we were seemingly young at that point. None of us know whether it's 10 days, 10 hours, or 100 years left to go. Trish, before going forward, we'd like to let our audience know, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Today we're talking to Trish Ahjel Roberts. She is the author of a book, and I have to look for that page with the title on there, 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness. And already you've really enlightened me and brought back many memories, but tell us more where we can get the book and if there's a website where we can learn more.
Yes. So my name is Trish Ahjel Roberts, and the book is 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness. And the website is mindblowinghappiness.com. So no spaces or anything like that in there, just mindblowinghappiness.com.
Now, you know, Trish, we'll give that information again during the show, that if someone didn't get it or wishes to get it down, we always want our audience have a pencil and paper in hand. People have gone through a lot because of the virus, the COVID, the corona, and this has been an extremely difficult period for us the last 12 months. And for some, probably day in, day out, not knowing what the next day will bring, where they're going. When people come to you about that and say, how can I be happy with this? What do you say to them?
Well, I mean, the pandemic has brought a lot of challenges for people. I think one of the biggest ones is isolation, not being able to connect and go out the way that we normally do. So I've been talking a lot about connecting online. I know a lot of folks, if they're over 40, they may feel a certain way about social media and those kinds of things. But I encourage people to check out meetup.com. And also Facebook groups. It's a great place to meet people and kind of establish a network so that when this thing is finally over, you can actually go have some new people in person that you can connect with. And when you do that, I do suggest that, you look for communities that are elevated, maybe communities that are a little bit farther along a path that you might want to be on. So out here in Atlanta, where I live, I organize a vegan group. It doesn't mean you have to be vegan to be in the group, but it could be interesting to look at a group that's a little farther along a path than you are, whether it's a lifestyle group like that, or if it's a spiritual group, or if it's a book club or athletic community, but something that's elevated. And I only say that because, we're in some strange days right now where people are getting seduced by hate groups and conspiracy theory groups. So just be careful when you join groups that they have an underlying ultimate message of love. And it's not, I don't know, I would stay away from things like gun groups. You know what I mean?
Somehow guns and love don't go together. I know they can be very good, but I think that's a good rule to go with. Trish, we see so many shows on TV and with people who have either some type of an addiction, and we've had people on the show helping people with an addiction. It's mind-boggling, and to those of us who don't have one, to know that if we looked at 4 houses on our block, and one of those houses, somebody has some type of an addiction, you say, oh my gosh, I'm in one house, so the other 3 houses to my left, to my right, and across the street, somebody, based on the numbers, obviously it may not be in actuality. How can people learn to love themselves? They have addictions, whether it's food, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, something that's taking them out of the mainstream, hurting their life. How do you tell people to love themselves more?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because there's an exercise that I do for self-love. One of the first steps is to write 5 things that you love to do. And I always say, okay, you can't put any substances on your list, no sex, and no food. So that's 5 things.
Cheeseburgers are out? We can't count cheeseburgers.
No cheeseburgers on the list. So 5 things that you love to do, and then 5 qualities that you love about yourself. And then the next step is to know your kind of masks and your uniforms. So whether you're wearing a corporate suit or a janitorial suit, whatever it is you wear for work, for women, it could be hair, makeup, nails, that kind of thing. But acknowledging the things that you use to mask or change yourself and why you do those things. So those 3 steps, once you have that understanding of the qualities that you like, the things you love to do, and the way that you alter yourself to be present in society, from there you can create affirming statements, affirmations, right, that you can repeat to yourself. because, listen, who's not addicted to something, right? We have sugar in all of our food. We've got fat. You have, of course,
Wait, is sugar
alcohol,
an addiction?
diesel.
I'm really on the. You just sent me off under the addiction. If sugar is an addiction, I'm in trouble.
White sugar, they say, is more powerful than cocaine. So that's a whole nother topic. But yeah,
oh my! I better call Dr. Phil right after the show. I'm going to have to be the patient on his show. So,
but I say that just to say that it's nothing to be ashamed of, because we're all kind of dealing with our own, personal journeys. But despite all of that, you can always find, things about yourself that you like, or even characteristics that you want to develop and work from there.
Trish, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I found that many people I talk to, they seem in their own mind to emphasize whatever deficiency they might have. I've had people tell me they have a big nose, and I'm looking at them and saying, I never even noticed it. I just like you as a person. I really did. They're short, they're tall, they're fat. And sometimes I'm saying fat, you're like 8 pounds overweight, which by most standards, most people would be very happy with that, especially sugar freaks like me and hamburger freaks. But, we see the negative, but we don't see the good in ourselves. Do you notice that with people you're dealing with?
I'm glad you brought that up, because negative self-talk is a huge problem. And if it goes from negative self-talk to self-deprecating comments that you actually say to other people, both of them are just not helpful at all, right? So when I talked about creating affirmations before, that's one way of countering negative self-talk, so that you can get it, because it's just a habit, right? It's a habit. If you get out of the habit of saying those things to yourself, and you get in the habit of saying positive things to yourself, you can turn around that mental conversation that you're having with yourself. There's a song that I love by India Ari where she says, the words that come out of your mouth, you are the first to hear. And that is really pretty profound, because it's true. Some of us have grown up in environments where maybe we had people who said negative things to us, maybe our parents or our siblings. So it could be a deeply ingrained history. But it's actually not that hard to turn around if you decide that you want to do that.
I remember years ago sitting in a doctor's office, I was reading a book, and I'm hearing two females talking about how unattractive they are. How unattractive. And I thought, oh my gosh, so it caught my ear. I looked up, and I remember this was a little after college, so it was many years ago, but I look up, both of them are extremely attractive.
Yeah.
They would be two people any college student would be happy to date. And they were both worrying about, one was complaining she was too short, the other was too tall. And, oh, you're so lucky you can buy anything. Oh, no, I wish I was beautiful like you. I could be a model. And when I look at them, it's like, what mirror are you looking in? And again, I guess we don't see the good points of our life or what the rest of the world sees in us, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you have an interesting subtitle to something. You call it throwing in the boomerang. You've got to tell me what that means, because somehow I think I'm going to get hit by that boomerang.
That's a good thing to get hit by the boomerang.
Is it? It's good? All right, if you say so.
So, yeah, one of the steps is generosity, and I call it throwing the boomerang because it 100% of the time will always come back to you. Now, it may not come back and necessarily immediately in the ways that people would like it to, but yeah, so giving is always beneficial to yourself. And I can give you an example. So I had read a book called Super Rich by Russell Simmons. And, he was the producer for early hip hop artists like Run DMC. And he talked about giving the music away for free in the early days. This is before we had social media followers, right? But he was giving it away for free. And ultimately, he created this huge following. So it's a lot like what we see with social media now. You may create content for free and you end up with followers. But even if it's something like donating your time to a charitable organization that you care about, you always get connection in return, that good feeling in your heart in return. There's always something, and you never know when it's going to come back to you. In my life, I started a meetup group 6 years ago, just because I went vegan and I didn't have anybody to have lunch with. So I started this group and just hosted a lot of events, and it's grown to over 4,000 followers. So that's the kind of thing, just giving from your heart, and that's throwing the boomerang, and it'll come back to you every time.
So I'm thinking maybe I could start a cheeseburger group. And if you can get 4,000 vegans,
groups.
Oh, come on. That might be, I'll be like your rival, and we'll see who has the biggest group or the most followers.
You can have a vegan grilled cheese group.
There you go. Okay, we'll meet in the middle someplace for joint détente for a while. Trish, once again, I want our audience to know our guest today is Trish Ahjel Roberts. She is the author of the book, 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness, a journal of insights, quotes, and questions to juice up your journey. I love that part. I think already our audience is learning from you, your ideas and how good they are. Trish, tell us, where can we get more information? Where can we get the book? And is there a website where we can find out more about you?
Yeah, so the website is mindblowinghappiness.com. And you can purchase the book through there. It's available on Amazon, so you can also go directly to Amazon and look for it there. The Mind Blowing Happiness website has a link where you can download a free ebook that I offer, which is the Mind Blowing Happiness Guide to Self-Care. And you can also access an inspirational blog that I write each week. So yes, definitely sign up on there and stay in touch with me. I would love that.
And you probably get people to sign up for your vegan group, and then we'll meet each other over that grilled cheese sandwich someday. Now, Trish, you mentioned that detachment leads to happiness. What does that mean? That seems counterintuitive.
Yes, that's another one that I get a lot of questions about. So I would give an example. Like, have you ever been in a relationship with someone who is so clingy that you run away, Or have you ever experienced parents who just can't let their kids grow up, I just gave myself a memory of dating someone whose mother called him to wake him up. He was in my house. And he was getting a wake-up call from his mom. So,
that sounds like a reality show. That you might want to think about that one.
A whole nother story, yeah. But so we have to learn to let go. So with kids, every stage they're growing and changing. You have to let go of the previous stage. Otherwise, you make yourself miserable trying to cling and hold on to things. Even all the way through our lives, to the end of our lives. So, yeah. Another good example is if you think of, say, a house is on fire and you run inside to save an heirloom or something. Really, we get attached to stuff. So it's not just our relationships with people. We get attached to memories. Some people are living in the past. They can't stop talking about high school and they're 60. Make a great life now. So, yeah, so that's how that concept works around detachment.
When you say that, it makes me think we all see those hoarder shows on TV and we say, how can they live like that? And yet in our mind, aren't we doing the same thing? We're keeping all that junk piled in there, whether it's leading to some kind of vermin, some kind of rats, or just bad mental health. But we're keeping something that happened in high school. I didn't like that guy then. I don't like him now 70 years later. Really? Yeah. Do you know what he's like 70 years later? Et cetera,
and it's all on a spectrum. It's all on a spectrum. So hoarders on TV is like the far, far end of the spectrum. But a lot of us just have, 500 books. Okay. Maybe you don't need 500. Maybe you
400 would do it. You could get by with 400, right?
Or, there are people who need books and you're not reading them, or need clothes and you're not wearing them. So we all have a little bit of that we could probably work on.
Trish, let's talk about, I know this is one of the topics you bring up, following your passions. A lot of us, I think, in life put things back and we blame it on, well, I had to take care of my mother, or I have children, or I don't have time with work, or I have to take my master's, etc. Can you talk about the value of happiness and following your passions in life?
Yeah, so I talk a lot about working in the zone as a way to identify your passions. Because, when you're so into something and you lose track of time, those are the things that you're most passionate about. And I know that, we all have different responsibilities. Not everybody can quit their job tomorrow to go become a circus performer or a singer or whatever, they're really into. But it doesn't mean that you cannot spend some time each week on it. So I think no matter what your situation, you could spend an hour or 2 hours working on your passion. And I mean, I learned this from personal experience. I wrote my first book in 1995 when I was 3 years old, That's a joke, Bill.
I got it. No, I'm sitting here doing the math. And now I'm going to tell you something, though. And when you brought up about passion, how true that is. I know a woman who was in her 60s, and she came into a little extra money in life. And unlike what most of us would use it for, she went to clown college.
Good for her.
To be a clown, not to make money, not to get rich, nothing like that. It was a passion of hers. She enjoyed making people happy. And then she went to children's events, and I think for free, really, just enjoyed putting the makeup on, being a clown, and seeing the happiness in children's faces, and, the joy when she pulled out one of the tricks of whether it's a water bottle or a ball out of her pocketbook or something like that. So
I love it.
Very
and
much.
I did want to finish that one thought about, because I was saying I wrote my first book in 1995, and I didn't get it published. And then I completely stopped writing for like 20 years. So I just say that to say I've been through it myself, putting my passion to the side. And at first I used to kick myself about it. But now I feel like I had that lesson so that I can share it with other people so they don't do the same thing. You can take 2 hours a week or a few hours a month to work on the things that really excite you.
And that's a good point. It doesn't have to be a full-time job like my friend who wanted to be the clown, or what someone may enjoy doing. A few hours a month, I guess, of painting, exercising, working on cars, if that's your true passion in life, or maybe it's something that we wouldn't think of as a passion, doing accounting work or volunteer work. But if that's your passion, hey, it's not going to hurt. And if that's the key to happiness, why not bring happiness into your life and someone else's life at the same time? Trish, we want to thank you so much for being with us today, giving us some guidelines on happiness and following the title of your book, 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness, A Journey of Insights, by our guest, Trish Ahjel Roberts. Trish, can you tell us again, give us that website to get the book?
It's mindblowinghappiness.com, and that's all one word.
Easy enough to remember. Thank you so much for being with us. Thanks for helping us on our journey to success and showing us that happiness must come first. Thank you, Trish.
Thank you so much, Bill.
We'd like our audience to know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.